everybody. Welcome to the Evolution Security Podcast. I'm here with my tactical twin, Eric Davis. How you doing, brother?
Doing wonderful. It's good to be hanging out with you guys.
Yes, well, we are extremely excited to have on Miss Annette Evans. She has a blog called On Her Own, a really good blog, and she is simply an intense advocate and expert and practitioner of the path of self-protection. We're just excited to have you on, excited to pick your brain about a lot of stuff, including some of the stuff we were just chatting about before we got on here. How are you doing, Annette?
I'm doing great. I am super excited to be here as well. I think you guys do really great work on this podcast, and I am honored to be included among your guests.
Awesome. You deserve that. We've been thinking about having you on a long time, Annette. I'm not sure what took us so long, frankly.
Eric's been talking about your book for probably a year or so.
It's been more like 2, I think.
Yeah,
to be frank.
I was trying not to sound too bad about it.
Pandemic time.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Annette, why don't you go ahead and give our audience some info about you, your background, your bio, and what you're up to these days, just in case they haven't heard about you.
Sure. So my name is Annette Evans. Before I did On Her Own, I was known as the beauty behind the blast when I was exceptionally a shooting nerd, and that's when I wrote Dry Fire Primer. So I'm just a girl. I have no law enforcement background. I have no military background. I learned to shoot as an adult because I thought every girl should learn how to shoot a gun. Like this was kind of like, and that list of things like learning how to change a flat or, how to like plunge a toilet. Like it was just a life skill that I wanted to learn and I had the opportunity to. And then I just went down this road that led me into competitive shooting. And I got pretty heavy into competitive shooting for many years. That was actually what I was known for quite a while. And then I started hosting some classes with the range facility I was trying to get off the ground. And I hosted Craig Douglas for Edge Weapon Overview. EWO changed the course of my life. EWO is the class where I learned I was going to die. And that sounds awful, but it was actually really, really good for me because this really, quite good shooting skill was just not going to get me out of trouble. And, I'm getting like stabbed in the face through a fist helmet. I'm getting picked up, thrown around. And I'm like, this is not cool. I need to learn how to do something about this. And Craig and Sean Lipka and Jeff Bluvman said, you need jujitsu in your life. So a couple of months after that EWO, was my first EWO of, 2, 3, something like that now. I started jujitsu. That was a little bit over 4 years ago now. And I've gone deep, deep, deep into the rabbit hole of combatives and other self-defense topics to kind of add on to my shooting nerdery. And On Her Own is essentially my doctoral thesis. It is I'm trying to pass on the lessons that I've learned and the information that I've picked up about how to survive and how to thrive.
Incredible. And I just had to point out when you said that EWO changed your life. Isn't it amazing how many people we run into in this world of training that will say, ECQC just changed my life? 100% same thing. And so our listeners may get tired of us talking about it, maybe on other podcasts, but it's the truth. So, and then like you, everybody starts going as often as they can. I've taken it 3 times. Eric is about to take it, your 8th time?
Yep.
And then that doesn't count EWO, and you've taken a couple other classes, I think. But yeah, once you go there to Shivworks stuff, you just keep going.
I have now collected the entire set. I have trained with everybody in the Shivworks collective. I finally hit Chris Fry up at TACCON this year. So
Awesome.
Caught them all. I have more time training with Craig than a lot of people have on their training resume. And
Awesome.
I have more time with Cecil. Not just as a student, Cecil's very kind and lets me help AI his classes when our schedules can mesh up. So I have a ton of time with those guys, and it's been life changing. Dr. William April's work is anybody who is familiar with his work can see how much it influenced my work.
Well, and Annette, it is interesting when we think about, and again, Aaron hits on the beating the dead horse about ECQC and the Shivworks Collective. It's just a fact, and whether or not individuals that may, if there are individuals, I don't think there's probably too many, but if there are individuals that kind of poo-poo hearing about it, man, they need to get on board and get in a class and see what we're talking about. When we say that it changes people, it absolutely does. And I do believe, and we speak about this pretty often on this show too, is that, Tom Givens talks about, and not just Tom Givens, but multiple of our mentors talk about that. Really, those that are really serious about training probably is around 20,000 people. And that may or may not ever grow beyond that. But I think that we're in the time where maybe we can gain another 50 or maybe even 100% more people. And I don't know, but it's certainly interesting to me when folks that find Shivworks, they find the Range Master family, they find all the individuals that are wrapped in that path, as we like to say, that man, they're just incredible people, and I think it's pretty neat, and I hope that more people want to do it. What's your thought on the fact that there's still only a small percentage of the community that are on this path we're on?
On one hand, I want to say, hey guys, like, come join us. We're not as scary as we look. We're kind of friendly. We have a lot of fun. I promise the bruises aren't that bad. I only have one sim scar after all these classes. On the other hand, realistically, that's kind of the world we live in. Any other pursuit is like this. I was a musician once too. I played violin.
Nice.
Unsurprising, right? I played violin, and the number of people who, pick up an instrument at some point in their lives and play it casually for a while versus the number of people who, like I was, in multiple ensembles, doing solo works, doing private lessons, practicing multiple times a day. That's a tiny, tiny fraction. And, those of us who are kind of really deep into the multi-disciplinary look, who are shooters, who are fighters, who are thinking about all the other pieces of this lifestyle, of course we're going to be a little bit small. That doesn't mean we're not welcoming, and we would love to have more people in it. But I'm also not surprised we're small, because it's like any other pursuit, even though this one literally is life or death.
Absolutely. And I think we say this fairly often as well, and I think you will likely agree that any individuals that go through courses like we're talking about, any of the Shivworks courses, Paul Sharp, Cecil, Craig, Chris, you or anybody in that realm, Tom Givens classes, so on and so forth, will find that they are the coolest, most well-balanced. I'm using Craig's words. They're well-balanced people. They're like they become friends and brothers and sisters.
Some of my best friends, you say brothers and sisters, and I'm like, my family of choice is very, not entirely, but very largely drawn from this community. Either I met them here or they were already part of it. I joined them in this community later on. But there's something about the experience. And I think that people who do any kind of tough thing knows what that's like. It's almost like if you've ever been stuck in an airport with that same group of people on your flight, and like 6 hours into delay, you're all friends, right?
Yeah.
It's like that, but so much more intense.
Absolutely. And I think we talk about the development of mindset, and we know there's only one way to really develop mindset, and that is through doing tough things, doing hard things, and sharing hardship or being under hardship. We know that that's really the only way to do it. And, not beat a dead horse, how Craig says, mindset's not a verb, right? And so for folks that they think they need to improve their mindset, it's really the only way is to do hard things. And, we're going to segue into jujitsu here in a second, because
that's exactly what
yeah,
jujitsu is.
yeah, yeah. And we'll certainly hit on that, because I think that if you want to point people towards the right direction, it's tough not just to say, hey, go do jujitsu. So I do want to say before we're going to jump into that right here in a second. I do want to say, because I think it's a really cool fact and a cool way that we learn of people, is I just happen to be perusing, learning about the Rangemaster IDC before I went to my first one, and I just happened to run into Greg Ellifrit's his blog, Active Response Training, and he was writing about taking the class with you. And I have to say, you got the casino coin. I believe it was in 13 seconds. Is that correct?
It's like 13.5, something like that.
No, yeah, there we go. Got
those
it there.
cards on there.
That's absolutely impressive.
I believe it is still the ladies' record. It was about half second off the old men's record until the boys down in Georgia decided to have a race and dropped it like 2 seconds, 3 seconds.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
When we say the boys in Georgia, are there some people we might know?
The Oconee County Sheriff's Office for a while there was...
well, that's cool.
They're good shooters.
Some police officers really getting down. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember what because Tim Herron was in the class with me, and Cecil Birch hosted it. And he shot it, I have to think he shot it in 10 or 11 seconds, somewhere in there. It was really fast.
Yeah.
I have to go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I think 10, 11 seconds, somewhere around there is kind of where the super fast men are going. I don't know where the ladies are coming in right now, but last I heard, I still have the record on that.
Oh, I would bet you're correct on that. I just wanted to say I was impressed with that for sure.
Well, and it reminds me when we start talking about the evolution of the times on these kind of famous drills, I liken it to, I don't remember exactly what it was, but wasn't there a time when it was thought that a 4-minute mile was impossible or something like that? Same thing with these drills. Everybody keeps getting better. The standards have to go up. In competition and IDPA, they've recently bumped the standards up again, and because the community has simply gotten better. So that's interesting.
Well, Annette, on that note, we thought it would be a lot of fun, because correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it seems to me like your main focus right now is jiu-jitsu. Is that correct?
I mean, I went to class at 6:30 this morning, and I got out of class at 7:30 last night. So, yeah.
Interestingly enough, and I want to let you continue, is that one of my favorite additions to our gym was the 0600 Daybreakers drilling class. That's been one of the best things for my jiu-jitsu, is having the capabilities to go in the morning versus, in addition to evening classes.
So I only train 3 days a week. I can't do more than that. My body's just going to give up on me. Getting old. But having a drilling only class has been really good, because it's given me that third day a week that I couldn't do otherwise.
So is it when is your drilling class? Is that the morning class?
That's the morning class.
Yeah. Yeah. And so do you guys mainly work, start off with a little warm up and then work guard passing for a while, work escapes for a while? Do you also mix in submission, but it's only drilling, correct?
So this is actually where I cross train. It's not my home school. So I show up once a week, I drill with them, and it's kind of like the primary instructor for that class picks a theme for the month. So like we had a whole month where we worked X guard or deep half, or we're doing like triangle and related submissions right now. And we just kind of spend a whole month kind of reiterating some of it. So there's some things that you'll drill 2, 3, 4 weeks in a row, and variations on it, and cleaning it up. It's a really small class, which is also nice because people don't like getting up early in the morning. So it's like getting a semi-private where I can ask all the questions I want and not feel like, oh, I'm the dumb person in the room. I'm the one who can't figure out how to finish the stupid triangle with my short little legs. But like, no, that's the class where I can ask that.
Well, it sounds very similar to how Adam Lamp, who runs our Daybreakers class, does a very similar. Like just recently he was doing a lot of spider guard passing. We had done a stint of X guard, like you had said. I had asked for turtle breakdowns a little while back, and we spent quite a bit of time on turtle breakdowns. And yeah, so it sounds very similar, very cool. And I'd like to comment. It's like I wish that people realize the efficacy of those morning classes, but I'm like you. I kind of think it's cool to have a little bit of an exclusiveness to the classes.
I'm not saying it's connected or anything, but I was a 0-stripe blue belt for like a year and a half. And like picked up my first stripe last summer. Started going to this drilling class in like October. Picked up my second stripe in December, my third stripe I think in February, my fourth stripe in June.
Awesome.
Legit.
So you're getting close to purple.
We'll see. Like I'm saying, it's anywhere between 2 weeks and 2 years from now I'll get my purple belt.
That's a very good way to put it. And I have to admit, Annette,
you just got yours.
Yes, I sure did. It was about 3 weeks ago. It's not been very long, and that's been my goal. I'm gonna have to tell you, I say this fairly often. I'm embarrassed to say that I've been a blue belt for 11 years. Life injuries. I'm no longer in the Army, but I still deploy as a civilian. I mean, just all of it just really would get in the way of a progression, and I didn't deserve my purple belt until recently. So I think it was correct, and I still kind of feel like, did I really deserve it? But the point being is, you hit it on the head. If it wasn't for Daybreakers and a lot of help from, I always like to shout out to Chris Curry. His help through this process, but having the Daybreakers along with Chris's and Lee's help, I wouldn't have been able to do it without the morning class, because that was the other aspect of my game that helped the consistency. And but I'm starting to make it about me. I didn't mean it that way, but man, I think it's awesome. We share that similar.
I think that I almost want to repeat that. You were a blue belt for 11 years and you got your purple belt, and that says something. It says, when you could show up, you showed up. Yep. And you will get there eventually. And it might feel like it's going to take forever. It's like going between my blue belt and that first stripe. Like, I almost quit jiu-jitsu like every other week by the end of that, before I got that stripe. Because I'm like, what's going on here? Is it the gym? Is it me? Am I just here forever? Is it what's going on? I don't know.
Yeah, the blue belt blues, right?
I had the blue belt blues super hard, but I kept showing up, and every time Rob puts a stripe on there, he's like, A, it's just a piece of tape, and B, you just keep showing up. Like, that's what it's about. You just keep showing up. I'm like, well, that's good, because my passing game is terrible.
Well, that
I
I
doubt
have to
that.
interject here that this coincides with your I think it's your latest blog post, which is BJJ and the power of showing up. Correct?
Actually, that was a little while back, Aaron. But
Okay,
yes, yeah. Go
that's
ahead
the one
and
I read
go ahead
today.
on.
There's a lot of posts. A lot of
Awesome.
posts. I'm wordy. Yeah, that was one that I wrote when I was thinking about this. Like, I'm the least serious BJJ practitioner ever, especially when I started. I showed up, like literally, like that was it. I showed up. I couldn't do half the techniques in class because I didn't understand what was going on. I couldn't remember anything at all. I didn't take notes. I didn't watch. I still don't watch videos. Um, I go to class. I flow before class. I do class. I roll after class, and that's like the extent of my jujitsu dedication. I mean, these days I'm kind of nerdy about it. So if I'm around the right people, I'll talk about this cool thing that happened I learned in class or that happened in a role. But it's not something that I really ever was serious. I wasn't a serious student, right? Like I just go to class and do whatever they told me to do if I could do it and go home. And somehow mysteriously I learned jujitsu like pretty well. Like even before I started going to this drilling class and added some finer points to my game and added some better technique, like my guard was still pretty good. And it wasn't because I like learned how to retain guard or anything like that. It's like I showed up at class, did some stuff, let people beat me up, and went back for more.
Well, and I think that's what that blog post was about, right? Is that consistency, and you mentioned in it how Cecil Birch had encouraged you just to pick a day, 2, 3 that you can make sure that you dedicate yourself to, and just simply show up. And I would argue, Annette, that you're saying that you're not serious about it.
Well, now I am.
Yeah, now I was I was just about to say I would disagree with that, but yes, you kind of close that comment there with the, you are now again as a 4-stripe blue. You're absolutely serious for sure, and I think you also alluded to something. I like to watch video a lot myself because it's just one other outlet for me. But really, is it necessary? I don't think so. I think what you're saying is it's like you're showing up and you have the proper people around you, and you're going to get better. I mean,
It's
video is not
unavoidable.
necessary to get. Yeah, exactly.
Like
Yeah.
I don't think you would have to try. Like you would have to try really hard to not get better if you just even if you show up once a week, like one class a week, you'll get better. It might take a longer because it's only once a week. Like that third day a week did make a big difference. I trained 2 days a week for most of my jiu-jitsu career, but show
I've
up.
I've said I've said before that there is an amazing exponential increase in capabilities when you go from 2 to 3. And it's only one more day a week, but if you think about it, it starts gain it's a logarithmic equation at that point. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm going one more time a week, but my brain's being exposed so much more from just adding that one day. It's a big difference.
It really, really was. Like 2 days a week, I was still learning. I was still improving. But the third day a week, and I think the other thing about the third day a week was that cross training. So like, when you get in I don't want to say a rut, a habit of going the same 2 days a week with the same people, it's always the same people who show up at class. You're rolling with the same dudes and the same girls all the time. And that's fun and it's comfortable and it's not like they don't give you a fight and they're not getting better. But you're not you're not getting exposed to something new. So I think that's where like if you've got at least 2 days a week somewhere, if you pick a third day that's, a completely different day or with a completely different group of people, that's going to sharpen your game up a little more too.
Well, I'm excited because our gym doesn't have a Wednesday class. Just it's been that way for a while.
Hey,
Tuna has to say hi.
okay,
Sorry.
you guys keep talking.
I think didn't Tuna come into the discussion on Lee Weem's show? I think.
Possibly. Tuna likes to show up as much as possible.
Yeah, I should.
She's a
My
star.
my pug is sitting out the door. I think I hear him. I've got a
Tuna, there's another kitty. It's like, I don't care, Mom.
Judah, look.
Oh, look. You have a
I
sibling.
thought I had to bring him in here because I saw her. It's a she, right?
Yes.
I saw her tail up, and I thought, okay, that's a cat that's content because of the high tail with the curl. Pretty neat how they speak with their tails.
Yes.
Yep. All right, buddy.
By the way, because this is jiu-jitsu, we have a kitten that we got about a year ago, and we watch them play, and it's totally jiu-jitsu.
cool.
Like, you can watch like the guard passing, the side control, and everything else. I'm like, maybe I am doing too much jits because that's all I can see anymore.
Yeah, well, as Jocko says, it's the way, right? So everything starts looking like jiu-jitsu. But again, and maybe another dead horse we beat on this show is that there's so much more that jiu-jitsu teaches us than just jiu-jitsu. You know, dealing with yourself, dealing with your ego, dealing with pressure outside of jiu-jitsu, all of that. That's why we say, hey, if you want a good activity, like everybody should at least try jiu-jitsu.
So one of the cool, like, I go to a fairly sport focused gym. I don't compete. Like, I just do jiu-jitsu. Like, it's not, I got into it for self-defense. I think about it a lot when I think about combatives. But when I go to class, I'm just doing jiu-jitsu. And that's okay too. But like you say, there's other things you learn from it. I have a funny pressure story, and it's only funny right now because I'm not actually there. We've got everybody at the gym, my primary gym, weighs like 30 to 70 pounds more than me. That's just my life. And they have all decided, all the purple belts have decided that they are not going to, they're not going to go easy on me anymore. And one of them, who's probably got me by about at least 40 or 50 pounds, flat out told me last night he's going full pressure on me now because.
Yeah.
Well,
and it sucked. And I definitely, pondered my ability to breathe. And not in that Shivworks ECQC, I can't breathe, in the fist helmet kind of way. Like, no, like,
yeah. I can't breathe.
There was a large human being putting full pressure on my chest. But I could breathe, and I could escape. And he couldn't stay there. He was not able to maintain that pass.
That's awesome.
And
so you just grinded it out then, huh?
Yeah, it sucked a lot. But the gym is somewhere like, I don't know what half the people I roll with do for a living, or I can't remember. Frankly, I can't remember a third of the names. I know the rash guard of the gi, but don't ask me like what they do or anything, because we just go there, and all that really matters is you're there to do jiu-jitsu for whatever reason you're there for.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people see jiu-jitsu and see their path that way, and I would say that I'm getting better about the names at my gym. I've only been at this gym a year now, but I want to tell you a story about pressure and all the years that I've been doing jiu-jitsu. It was a huge epiphany, and I feel silly for admitting this, but I'm going to, because I think other individuals need to hear this as well. And Roy Marsh, he's not. He currently is overseas, but he was the black belt that handed the program over to my current instructor, Lee King. And he said something one time in this, it was a small seminar he was providing us, and he was talking about pressure and how to deal with pressure. And he said, everybody wants to, and they get in a pressure position, or have somebody on them putting all this pressure, and it's intuitive to tense up, tense your core up. You're trying to breathe, but still, exert a little bit of core strength to try to deal with that pressure. I've always done it that way. And I guess through just rolling all the time, my conditioning's decent enough to handle that. But he said, relax your diaphragm. Don't concern yourself. He said, if you can think about releasing all the pressure around your diaphragm, you're not going to have near as tough a time. He said, just give it a try. Just keep, and he demonstrated on me. And I'm like, why did I never, ever hear somebody say that to me? And it's amazing. I've been using it ever since. And so just relaxing my diaphragm. So I'll think about those times when I'm feeling like I'm getting crushed, and I have to relax my diaphragm, and it helps a ton. So hopefully that might help a few people out there, because
I'm going to play with that.
Yeah.
I get crushed a lot. We're a pressure heavy school. I get crushed a lot.
Yeah. Give that a try. Go ahead.
I'm going to try that. The other thing you'll note about the pressure is after that, I got to say my day job, I won't say it's easy because it's not, but it's a lot less nerve wracking.
Absolutely.
You know what the opposing counsel can't do at my day job? They can't strangle me.
Yep. That's right.
Although I did make the mistake of hiring one of my interns this summer is from the gym.
Oh, really?
And he's fantastic, but it's kind of funny because, well, he up until a couple of weeks ago, he technically outranked me.
Okay, yeah.
Not anymore.
Now we're equals at the gym. That's weird.
Awesome. Yeah, because you're progressing.
But it does make for it does make other areas of your life are just a little bit less scary.
Absolutely. And that's why we drive that point home all the time about what jiu-jitsu, one of the things that jiu-jitsu teaches you. And I'll say this, we probably want to segue into some other subjects, but I do want to ask you this, just a simple question on jiu-jitsu. What's your current jiu-jitsu focus right now? Anything you're working on particular?
Well, I should be working on my passing game. What I'm actually doing is working on this. I have this omoplata sequence that I've been playing with. So omoplata to arm bar to monoplata to triangle to basically anything that annoys you with a monkey hanging off your arm.
Oh, nice. I've been there, and it seems to be there. I won't. Well, I'll mention her first name, Rose. I don't know if she listens to it, but she's got a sequence like that annoys the heck out of me.
It's so much fun.
Awesome.
Shout out to Rose. She's awesome. Yep. Very cool.
Well, Annette, let's kind of get into some red meat of shooting. Now, I believe that you've been a competitive shooter. Are you still involved with competing, or?
I took some time off starting about a year before the pandemic for some personal reasons, and then the pandemic happened. So I have not been shooting competitively for several years now. I keep saying I'm going back, and then I have things like, oh, but like jiu-jitsu, or oh, but I'm traveling. I swear I'm going back. I'm getting ready for it. I've got the gun. I've got a new gun for it and everything, because I have unfinished business in USPSA.
Nice.
Unfinished business. That sounds good. Yeah, that was going to be one of my next questions. Was what game you like to play the most, or what you do. And we started out. I don't know if there was a USPSA club where we lived here in Tulsa, so we started IDPA. I've just stuck that out. Boy, USPSA kind of confuses me, at least when I try and look at the rules. We might bore people by going into that, but I need to give it a whirl one of these days.
I think so. I used to actually co-direct an IDPA club and then a USPSA club. We converted. And one of the things I always told new shooters is that at most clubs, or at least the clubs that I've been involved with, I've helped out with, I've shot at, if you're new, like, we'll help you. Show up with what you've got, we'll make it work. Yeah, you're not going to do well in the standings, but you weren't anyway. So don't worry about that. Just, it's like jujitsu. Show up and you'll figure it out. And eventually you'll go, wait, I need a new gi, gun, whatever it is. You know, this isn't working for me. I actually do need to buy a rash guard. I actually do need to buy a gamer holster, whatever it is. But can you show up on day one in like, just like a pair of like shorts and a t-shirt? Just like you can show up at USPSA with whatever you've got, we'll make it work.
Well, and it's funny. I really should. I'm glad you kind of made me feel a little bit corrected there, because I say that all the time to people that I try to get to an IDPA match. Doesn't matter how well you do, you'll learn the game one stage at a time. Doesn't matter how you do, you won just because you showed up. Maybe I need to listen to my own advice.
You will learn the rules of IDPA and USPSA one procedural at a time.
Oh boy, yeah.
Like that's kind of like, don't get DQ'd, and the rest of it you'll figure out. And I really want to repeat it too. You're not going. It's very unusual for you to come in and do well. Like, that's just not the way it is. You're learning a new game, and frankly, the people there are probably better than you are from a skills perspective. That's just the way it is. Like, I don't care what your background is as a shooter. Unless you've been doing this, you're probably going to get humbled. And that's okay. I lost every single match I shot for the first year or two I shot competitively. And so you know how IDPA is time plus scoring? Mm-hmm. And you'd have like 60 seconds for a match. Like, first place would be like 58 seconds, and then like it kind of fill in after that, and then you get to like the people who took like 80 or 90 seconds, and then that'd be like at like 185.
Yep.
Like, when I say I lost matches, I'm like, they weren't sure I showed up at the same match and only shot it once, lost matches. It was embarrassing. It was tough. It sucked. And I kept showing up, and I learned some stuff, and I practiced some stuff. There's that whole dry fire thing that happened. And I've gone back to some of those matches and won them.
Absolutely. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, you've had some regional championships in USPSA, correct?
Yeah, I've been the USPSA Area 8 Ladies Champion in production.
Awesome.
One year I won the Ladies Centerfire Pistol title for East Coast Steel Challenge. So, there's been a few here and there. I came in top 10 at the first Lady 3-gun.
Awesome.
All these ladies titles. I've been working on the guy side, but there's just not there yet. Plus, they sound better. It's one thing to be like, I came in, 14th place out of 85, or I came in first lady.
Yeah, but I think if individuals know competitive shooting, what you just said, 14th out of 85 is a excellent showing, though.
Which I just came up with. I don't remember some of the other ones.
Oh, sure.
They're not the press ones, but like, it is what it is. And I've shot 70-80% matches, so I'm happy about those.
Well, and Aaron, I don't want to steal the topic because I know you got a couple of questions. I'll just say this, telling on myself, and Aaron can beat up on me a little bit. I've put so much of my focus in my jiu-jitsu. I mean, competitive shooting, at least IDPA wise, was years ago. It was like the thing for me, even outside of jiu-jitsu. And I've been doing jiu-jitsu or martial arts, well before I did competitive shooting. But man, competitive shooting was it for me for like 3 or 4 years. And it's like, that's the only thing I concern myself with. So I need to take your guys' advice. Aaron's been telling me, you need to start competing again. I was like, yep, I do.
Well, and vice versa. I've been serious about competing and not as serious about jiu-jitsu. So we are actually technically, I believe, biologically mirror twins. So, so it's
there's truth to that.
Yes, there is. But so we can I'm trying to think about how we want to go about this. Well, okay, so while we're talking about competition, um, at least for now, what would your preferred rig be?
So my production rig is actually set up and ready to go. I shoot a Gray Guns P320, and spoiler alert, I am sponsored by Gray Guns still. They've stuck with me thick and thin.
Awesome.
So it is a 5-inch bull barrel gunsmith slide that they've done up, and on a tungsten grip frame that Bruce reduced for my hands. And I had that in Star Gear Kydex. I am running Henry Holster's magazine bodies right now, magazine carrier bodies. I'm looking at my rig right now, and I'm running a custom belt that Jules Considine is playing with. So he has some ideas.
Can you show us your pistol?
I'm going to have to unhook myself and return in a moment.
Yeah, that's fine.
You might want to edit that and just shorten the gap.
Nah.
Oh no, we don't.
We've gotten to where we just let it roll. Even
let
me
it
rolling
roll.
out and getting my cat, we just put the humanity in there.
And Annette, before you even describe that, I have to ask: did those come from your dry fire pants?
Yep.
This is actually not on my dry fire pants right now because I've not been dry firing as much as I should be. There's stuff going on, so
Well,
unfortunately. But it is right next to my desk, which should tell you something too.
I'll hit on that when we talk about your book, but the dry fire pants are special.
I love the dry fire pants are. I think I actually just wrote about them on Wednesday.
Awesome.
So Wednesday.
Go ahead.
There's such a useful concept. It's just that whole idea. I stole it from Carla Herzig. This whole idea of like reducing the barriers to doing a thing.
Absolutely, and I mean, we're on the subject. I'll just breach it right now. Is that was one of the coolest things I learned from your book. I was like, what on earth? Why did I never think of that? I mean, dry firing for 20 some odd years, being serious about shooting, and like dry fire pants. How freaking simple a concept, but how foreign a thought.
It comes from people. I mean, it came from Carla, and I stole it and tried to popularize it. It comes from people who don't like to wear real pants. That's why we thought of it. It's because we're not normally wearing real pants, and we have to put real pants on in order to dry fire because, belts and all that before the Enigma became a thing.
Yeah.
So,
well
dry
said.
fire pants. It's the same as like keeping my jiu-jitsu bag packed.
Yep, exactly.
So I don't have to run around the house and find all my gear before I go to the gym. It's just like, all right, it's time to go to the gym.
Well, and since we mentioned it in case, and folks are probably figuring out what we're saying, but essentially, and tell me if I get any aspect of this wrong, what Annette placed in her book, the dry fire primer or primer, what do you call it? Do you call it primer?
I call it the primer.
Okay, because it's like vernacular depending on who you speak with, primer or primer, but that dry fire pants are essentially what you typically either carry and or compete in, that you set up a pair of pants that are what you would normally compete or carry in, the exact same rig, a duplicate, and that you have them hung up, that you're ready to dry fire. Because I can, it takes you, if you're serious about doing it correctly, it takes you 5 minutes to get dressed for dry fire practice. If you're having to grab all your stuff and do it safely, you better be clearing everything, all that good stuff. But your dry fire pants suggestion in that book is brilliant, and folks need to heed to it. But do I have that correct though?
So dry fire pants, it's reducing the friction, right? Even if say you only own one gun, even if you only have, you have the gun that you carry and that's the gun you use for everything, it still sets up between that and the dojo. It sets up a way to make it faster and easier and less work and less thought to get started with the work.
And you have less of an excuse.
Yep.
The barrier, like you said earlier, just remove one of those barriers.
Yeah. If you've only got 15 minutes to dry fire, I want you dry firing for 13 of them. But if you have to like run around and find your gear and like you got home and you put on the comfy pants, because don't lie, you put on the comfy pants, right? Like we all do it.
Yep.
You're like, oh, but I haven't dry fired yet today. Your dry fire pants has a belt on it, has a holster on it. You know, if you've got an extra gun, you can get that out of the safe or however you can store it safely in your house, or you need to clear your carry gun, but you can just step into those pants and they're ready to go. And if you've got your dojo set up or a little area set up with all your gear, you don't have to go, where's my shot timer? And then you don't have to think, what direction was safe? You know, did I actually pick and choose a good, safe direction? Do I have, a book of drills ready to go? Whatever it is. That's 8 minutes of your 15 minutes of dry fire time.
Well, and Annette, you just reminded me of something that I wrote a note in my journal about. Like, I have a section where I put new gear I need to purchase, and it's not, it's typically not gear I just want. It's like, hey, I need this. And that was a realization kind of on the same note was I need another freaking timer because my range bag sits down in my garage. And that is one aspect that, my timer's downstairs, or it remains in my dry fire dojo area, and I'm having to grab it to make sure I have it at the range.
Yep.
So I'm defeating myself a little bit there. So
Yes.
I wrote a
Speaking
note.
of, I really want one of those AMG timers, but there's like a several month wait.
If
I don't know if you
it's
guys know
several
what
months,
I'm.
if it's
Commander.
the AMG Commander that Mike Seeklander recommended.
So
Go ahead.
a little birdie has told me just today that there is a new version of the Range Tech shot timer coming. I'm just saying.
And it's not a boutique one. Eric, like looking for one of those Commander, it's like ordering one of my custom guitars. Sit back and wait.
It's like ordering knives.
Yep.
My favorite time-consuming hobby is having a custom knife on order.
Oh, rock on. Now, real quick, so you said, what was the timer again?
Range Tech. There is a version out now, but I'm told that they are developing a new one that sounds like it's got some pretty cool things going on with it. It's rangetechtimer.com.
Cool.
I want the reason the AMG Commander is interesting to me, or what I want out of it is I want to set my par times for my most frequented drills, that I don't have to keep setting the par time for the particular drills that I'm working. I want to be able to set a handful of drills and always have them ready to go.
Annette's going to show us something, isn't she?
I'm going to show you my ancient Pocket Pro 1. And the reason I love this thing for dry fire is it's really easy to set par times on. Like literally, that's it. That's why I still have this thing. It's you can see how old it is. It's because it's actually it's a rescued shot timer. Even worse, it still says unbroken on the side.
It's like
but
rescuing a cat or something.
A Pantera song. I'm broken. No, sorry.
Unbroken.
I had to pick that up there.
It's like, that's okay, shot timer. I'm broken inside too.
We all are to a degree.
That's why we do jujitsu.
Exactly. well, interestingly enough, I use the Pack Timer 3. The par time's easy to set up, or fairly easy. Mm-hmm. It's fairly intuitive. But man, I even want to reduce the amount of time I have to mess with it still yet. But yeah, you're right. That is that timer is intuitive.
It's got to be the one. The Pocket Pro 2 is a little harder.
It is. I literally, that's what I have. And setting the part, I literally like poke buttons a few times. Oh, that's the right button. No, that's the wrong button. Wait, that's the wrong way. Every freaking time. And I use the dang thing. And I still haven't figured it out. So, but hey, before we go too far, we want to see your pistol if you got it.
Still want to see the gun. So you can see I actually have a barrel block in it now because I do use it for dry fire. And that's actually probably the biggest thing I've added to my recommendations is now that barrel blocks are available and they're like $8 and you can take them out and put them in without disassembling the gun. I don't think there's any reason to not use them when dry firing now.
Very, very good point. Yep.
Amazing.
I have a safe direction right there, which is super cool, but actually most of my office is a safe direction because of the construction of my house. So this is my Gray Guns 320. Because of the grip reduction, we added some grit to it to finish off some of the surfaces. You can see the really, really cool slide serrations that are on this model.
Nice.
It's drawn from like that old 1911 kind of look.
Yeah, that's a sexy pistol for sure.
Yeah, my new friend's CB is going to dig on that. I'll have to tell her to listen to that. Now, I'm curious. So is the side of the grip, is that like a laser job or something?
Yeah, so this texturing is something that Gray Guns does. They call, I think, the Dragon Scale or something like that. I find it, comfortable and grippy without being overly done. And it's normally on the back side, on the back strap as well, and everything else. But like I said, we had to carve some of that off.
Sure.
So
well, that's super cool.
And the other thing on there, I have their hybrid trigger. So that's kind of a hybrid between the straight trigger and the curve that I find much, much more comfortable than all the straight triggers. I don't like straight triggers. And this takedown lever is from my very first 320 when I was still shooting for SIG. So this is a Gen 1 320 takedown lever that I still prefer over the new style.
Nice. Very cool.
And the FCU in this gun is, and I have the Gray Guns extended slide release. The FCU in this gun is, again, from my original team gun. We've rebuilt this FCU probably 2 or 3 times, maybe more. But it is still the original FCU that I had on my very first 320.
That's like rebuilding your favorite car's engine and keeping it going down the road. That's cool.
I love this gun. This is... I shoot this gun really well. I really like it.
Awesome. What sights are you running on it? Go ahead.
This is essentially a Dawson front sight, more or less. And this is the SIG P220 Elite rear sight.
Gotcha.
So it's an adjustable rear. This is one of my favorite rear sights that I've ever used on anything.
We love our Dawson sights for sure when we're talking irons.
Yeah, that rear sight is, I've had it on almost all of my 320s, and it's fabulous to shoot with. Sucks for carry. I wouldn't carry it, but it's really great for everything else.
Well, and we sure want to talk about carry later. Now, Eric, do you want to, let's get into a little bit of more of your dry fire routine and what led you to write that book, Annette?
I was answering a lot of questions very long-windedly, as I do, and they were all the same questions. And I realized that there might be something in here. I am a big fan of Steve Anderson's books, Ben Steger's books, which were pretty much Mike Seeklander's books, which were pretty much it in the dry fire realm when I wrote my book. And they were really great books, but I felt like there were a lot of very elementary questions that they didn't answer. Like Steve would be like, set a par time. I'm like, but Steve, how do I set a par time?
Interesting, yeah.
And people would be talking about dry fire, and I'd be teaching a couple seminars here and there and realizing people didn't really understand the concept of a safe direction. Hey guys, what direction do you dry fire it in? And be like somebody's TV, a light switch. I'm like, hey, what's behind that light switch? My kid's room. I'm like, I know you're pretty sure your gun is empty, but maybe not do that. Just saying. So,
yeah, I've known some really good shooters that have put holes in walls. So
yeah, and there was a lot of. I'm a nerd, and I'd spent a lot of time thinking about things like how to improve performance. And I was getting little bits here and there, like there'd be a little bit in one of Ben's books, and everybody's read Lanny Basum, and everybody's read The Inner Game of Tennis, and pulling little bits here and there, and I wanted to apply it to the action shooting sports. This works for all shooting sports.
Pardon me, did you say Lanny Basum?
Lanny Basum. So with winning in mind.
Oh yeah, excellent book. Yeah.
And The Inner Game of Tennis, which is actually my favorite in that realm. It's It's the book about shooting that's actually about tennis, but it's actually about shooting. So I've been thinking a lot about that and how the brain works and how learning works, and realizing that I was talking about this a whole lot. So I collected it all into, it's not a very long book. I think it's like 80 pages, and put it out there. Didn't really expect much out of it. It's still selling. It's still, people still think it's really helpful because it's the book that I recommend that you read before you pick up Ben or Steve's or Mike's books, because they're, this great set of how to improve your shooting. I'm like, yeah, but how do you set up to improve?
So that's why it's called the primer, right?
Right. And
Awesome.
the other thing that's really helpful is I find that for people who plateau, who are like, I've been dry firing, for my whole life, or, for the last 10 years, but I'm not getting any better. So what am I not doing right? And that's where when we start talking to like block versus random practice and training to failure, like those concepts aren't things that everybody's familiar with. And that's where this book tries to introduce them to ways that you can push your training so that you can actually improve instead of just kind of like work your way through the book, wonder why it's not doing anything for you.
Well, Annette, if I can stop you there, because that you mentioned something that was crucial that I learned from your book, and I mean, I have to admit, Aaron and I have been shooting, for many, many, many years, dry firing nearly that whole time. I mention this sometimes or fairly often. I don't shoot this level any longer, but I made masterclass in IDPA. But I still had never heard, or maybe I never listened, that you have to push yourself to failure. And it was your book that said, why am I not pushing myself to failure in dry practice when I push myself to failure in live fire? I know to push myself into failure in a live fire. Why am I not doing it in dry practice? And when I read that in your book, I'm like, what the heck's wrong with me? But I mean, obviously I wasn't beating up on myself, but that changed my dry practice. Absolutely.
Have you dropped a gun yet? Have you thrown a gun across the room yet?
Absolutely. And I hadn't done that until your book.
Well, I guess I'm not practicing hard enough because I have not thrown a gun across the room. I'll text you guys when I do. Okay.
I find that's where the draw really makes a change in people, is when they realize like that's how much you want to really put into your draw. Is like, find the line where you're going to throw your gun across the room and don't go past that with a real gun, like a live gun. Like obviously that's a bad idea.
We don't get DQ'd.
Yeah, you don't shoot yourself, you don't shoot somebody else. Like, but
Sounds
in
like
dry fire,
a blue gun's good to go with this pushing to failure. Then
yeah, get a weighted blue gun, disable your gun, like put a barrel block in it or something like that, and go to town and see what happens. And everyone loves the sub-second draw. A, I've got a method for that. We could talk about that offline. B, part of the method for that, to the work on your own, the homework for that method involves going hard enough that you're afraid you're going to throw your gun across the room.
wow, good
Well
point.
said.
Awesome.
So how else do you know how fast you can go?
Yep. Yeah, you're right, and I think our listeners will benefit from hearing you say that. And I think,
and it's going to get taken out of context. Annette says throw your gun across the room.
Well, you know what's so we'll never not have discussions or comments taken out of context, especially in this world of self-defense, shooting, combatives, all of it. It's like, man,
And male egos.
yeah, male
But,
egos. That's
but
another subject altogether.
Here's the jiu-jitsu analogy. If you don't let yourself get submitted, how do you know how to escape?
Yep.
Well, and you'll appreciate this too, Annette. So with my guitars, I practice still. I've played for 33 years. My favorite thing to do still is practice guitar. I usually put in, I'll get up and practice for 30 minutes in the morning, and then I'll practice at lunchtime. And then when we get off of here, I'll practice some more. I did dry fire before the show, though. I'm just making sure you guys know. But what I'm getting around to saying is to get faster at playing 30-second notes, straight picking. The only way I can do that is play as fast as I can and get to that real sloppy point, and then back it off on the metronome. Right. So same thing. So it sounds like there's a mental aspect to all this. Anything we want to pursue, that we got to push ourselves to the end. So that's cool.
Yeah. And you mentioned the tennis book. It's like Brian Enos spoke about the golf books that he read to enhance his shooting capabilities. It feels like the same kind of thought process.
Annette, I think this would be a good time to ask this question. I bet you get asked this question a lot, but at the same time, I want to touch on this because, I often try to encourage my new shooting friends, or they've been shooting for a while and same thing, are plateauing or just aren't that serious. And I try to explain to them, dry fire. Every great shooter dry fires. It's actually probably the most important thing that they do. But we're all gung ho about this. We work hard at all this stuff, but then not everybody is as intense as we are, or especially you. It seems like so.
Not
What
anymore,
do
but
you what do you tell someone that you're trying to, or what do I tell someone that I'm trying to get dry fire? What's a minimum, or what do you think is going to be good for someone to get their foot in the door, to get a habit of that? What kind of time do you think? I know they need to know what they need to work on, but what do you think is a good time commitment to for someone to jump in?
So one of the hard things about that question is, what is that person's goal, and
Mm-hmm.
what are their priorities in life as well as in
Mm-hmm.
shooting? I used to dry fire a lot. It'd be half hour, 45 minutes, an hour at a time, 4 or 5, 6 days a week. And it was a lot. Like I wouldn't expect that of other people. And it was sort of at a time in my life when I was chasing certain goals. I think one of the things that's really useful to tell people is dry fire can be kind of whatever you want or need it to be. So if dry fire is, I'm going to practice racking my slide and locking it back 5 times, that's helpful dry fire. Like, that's still dry
That
fire.
is.
Good point.
Like, that's something you need to learn. I had to practice quite a bit before I could rack the slide on some of my guns when I was just starting out. Dry fire doesn't need to require trigger press. There is one dry fire drill and one drill only that I will do that doesn't require any prep at all. And that is when I put on a carry gun. I will put on that gun. I'll put on, whatever concealment garments I'm going to use that day. And my dry fire drill is literally just getting a grip on the gun.
Mm-hmm.
Getting whatever grip on the gun I'm going to use to draw. So if you're a claw grip person, if you like full firing grip, whatever it is, gun stays in the holster. All you're doing is moving the cover garment and getting your hand on the gun. And I think a lot of people don't realize, hey, that's dry fire. That counts. That's legitimate. And can you spend 30 seconds doing that after you get dressed?
Excellent.
Is that going to put you ahead of the game than most people if you do just that?
Absolutely.
It's the hardest part of getting your gun out.
Yeah, getting a grip on it. Clearing the garment, getting a grip on it.
And you can do that with zero prep.
That's awesome.
This is the one dry fire drill that you don't have to unload your gun for, because your gun will never leave the holster.
Well said. That's going to be an excellent tip for our listeners and ourselves, by the way.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love it. Excellent.
And I do that from time to time, but not as much as I actually really should, because our garments change. You may change pants. Mm-hmm. You gotta make sure you're, and I think it's part of that saying that Um, if I dry fired yesterday, I had recent dry practice, but if I only dry fired 2 weeks ago, that's a long time ago. But what if all I did before I walked out the door is I made sure I had a good, at least a proprioception representation of where my grip is, and gaining that grip, man, that's awesome.
And another fun thing that you can do on that same kind of aspect is if you're sitting in traffic, get a grip on your pistol while you're seated in your car.
Just watch out who's around you.
Oh, of course. Well, I've got dark tinted windows, but I mean,
Yeah.
just literally, no one will see you, especially if you're carrying appendix. But yeah, I've done that. Not consistently either, but when I think about it, I think I need to get a grip on this pistol as I'm seated here. But yeah,
Yep.
that's an awesome reminder, and the way you defined it to people to say it's okay. This is real dry fire, and the racking the slide. I can think of friends that have a hard time racking their slide. In one of my beginning classes, some really good friends, they just still have a hard time racking the slide, but that's dry fire. I love it.
Uh-huh.
Cool.
And you'll if this is the thing for you, it'll grow, right? You'll go from, oh, I'm racking the slide, I wonder if, or what if I do this, or hey, I'm getting that grip on the gun. Can I set aside a little time to actually come to a full draw? Like it'll come or it won't come. And frankly, none of us really have control over what another person decides. We can tell them why it's a good idea. We can make it easier for them. We can tell them about dry fire pants and dry fire dojos and all that. But at the end of the day, they're going to decide how serious they are about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I
and
know one of the topics. Oh, I'm sorry.
no, please.
Let's say I know one of the topics we wanted to talk about is like, well, how do I tell my female significant other or daughter or other woman in my life to, go to class and, go to a shooting class or go to ECQC, because I don't know why you would do that to somebody. um, no, I'm kidding. I know people have done it and it's done very well.
I
But,
I have recently told my
Oh,
wife,
did I
"Come
lose
on,
you
you need to
guys?
go take ECQC
like
with
it's a
me."
little rough entry. Not that it's not doable, but it's a rough entry. EWO was my first Shivworks class. So I think that, there's only so much we can lead horses to water.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a gear thing. They may decide that they love that, I don't know, pick that XD.
Mm-hmm.
And all of us who shoot 10,000 rounds a year and have hundreds of hours training, yeah, that. Where you feel like, oh, really, is that what she had to like? Does she like it? Is she willing to go train with it?
Mm-hmm.
Will it make it through class? Like that is kind of a thing. Like, will it make it through class in a way that's not frustrating? And let's be honest, almost anything on the market right now will probably do that.
Mm-hmm.
And if not, bring them back up, but don't make them use it until stuff starts failing.
Yeah.
Right? If they're excited about that gun or that piece of gear, as long as it's safe and serviceable, go at it. Right? Like, we can't make those choices for people, just like we can't make the choices for them to even go to class. We can make it easier. You'd be like, hey, I'll take care of babysitting this weekend. I got the kids this weekend. You go to class. Let me pack your lunch for you. Let me pack all your gear for you. Let me load up the car for you. Let me get together whatever gear you want to use and have at it. If they get serious about it, 6 months, 6 years down the line, you're buying them custom clocks or you're buying them custom whatever. And I'm sorry, your ammo bill just shot up. But if not, are they still better off?
Well worth it.
They're still better off if, all they did was go to that one class with their XD or whatever it is. Kimber Micro. That's a popular one too. You might want to bring a backup for that gun. They don't make it through class very often.
Awesome.
Well,
then go ahead, Aaron.
I'm sorry, but in this, so just excellent points about dry fire. And I'm embarrassed to say I've not read your book yet, but I know I'm going to now.
It's short,
So,
won't take long.
so well, I look forward to that because you've said some brilliant stuff.
Thank you.
Now, since we're on the topic, really, what is your I'm sure, like me, I have a handful of rigs that I use depending on the day and depending on the dress. But what are let's just say, your favorite couple of EDC rigs?
So I am down to 3 EDC rigs, and that actually there's a reason for every one of them. I
Mm-hmm.
have a Glock 19 irons, and that is the absolute biggest gun that I am able to conceal. So that's the gun. That's a bore sight 19 with the grip
Oh,
reduction, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Love that gun. It's a lot of gun to conceal on a person my size. So that doesn't come out as much as I would like. My primary carry gun is a Glock 48 with an RMRCC on it. Again, with the bore sight work, blah, blah, blah. Ben built it to match my 19. The only difference is it has a dot on it and it's single stack instead of double. And it has a purple
awesome.
slide. So that, again, is slightly on the large size for me to carry, but still pretty doable. And then when I need to go for super easy, super no thought carry, I am currently carrying as my micro gun a Beretta APX A1 carry. So full disclosure, Beretta sent me the gun. They've asked me to do some work with them on it to help promote it. But I got to be honest, I got this gun and started playing with it and went, this is a tiny flat revolver I've always wanted. It is a flush fit magazine, 6+1 rounds. Striker fire double action, and I can throw a dot on top, and about the size of a 365.
Oh, wow! So
Or
you said
43.
you said about the size of a 43.
Yeah,
Yeah.
43, 365, somewhere in that range. So it's got a capacity issue for people who like their high cap micro guns right now. But I really, really like having a double action gun for carry.
Well, and maybe offline, I'd like to see a pic of that. What you, I mean, I could obviously look it up, but
yeah,
I'm interested in it.
Yeah, it was a gun that I was surprised to like as much as I do, but it's like carrying a little miniature. It's like carrying a flat revolver with a dot.
Man, that was another thing I was going to ask if you had been getting into dots. Our listeners have heard this story multiple times, but I had cataracts and basically I've got bionic eyes now. I have to have these glasses on for computer, but otherwise I can see great. So I've gone to all dots. I have a Hall Sun 507K on my Glock 42, not just a 43, right? And it's because now I can see irons a little better, but I just would never want to responsibly use irons with my close vision. So yeah, I was curious if you're digging on dots much.
I love dots. I've spent a lot of time behind them. My light pin is with a dot. So my light pin is with a dot. My casino record is with irons. I shoot both. I compete on irons. I've competed in carry optics. Production is my first love and my last love. I carry irons on my 19 because I just can't conceal a 19 with a dot.
Yeah.
I think dots make low percentage shots more possible for more people. And that's really where they win so much. So if I can have a dot, yeah. I don't have much of a transition between dots and irons. I don't need a lot of time to go between one or the other. They're, from a shooting perspective, about the same to me. And some of that is time behind a gun.
Mm-hmm.
If your index, Yong Lee would call it the mount of your gun, right? Like how the gun comes up in front of your face. If that's very consistent, the dot or the irons are all going to appear about the same. Like they're just going to show up in front of your face. There's not going to be any fishing on either one. And if that's the case, then I can go back and forth kind of whenever I want, whenever context demands. So dots on a carry gun, I think, are, if you are able to shoot dots with some degree of competency, which is to say that dot comes up in front of your face when you draw your gun. Yeah. If we want to make 40-yard shots, if we want to make hostage shots, if we want to do all that, it's going to be a lot easier with a dot.
I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting you brought up the 40-yard shot.
Everyone's talking about it.
Yes, they are. Good. I'm good on that guy. But so Eric, we've gotten a little long here, so I am actually going to pass the torch to you for the most important question on the show. Can you handle it?
I think I can, but before I ask that question, I wanted to ask another little nerd question because we love jiu-jitsu, and I just want to know what's your favorite gi? What do you like to run gi wise?
I am currently liking Kitsune.
Oh, okay.
They fit fairly well. They're lightweight and they're holding up to the training that I'm doing. So that's where I'm at right now. 93 brand made an amazing gi, a wild tiger gi that was bamboo for the kimono.
Oh, cool.
Oh, and I think I remember
full rash guard lining. So like all down the sleeves, all down the back instead of just the shoulders. But I got the white one instead of the black one, which was a mistake. And I'm never buying another white gi.
I am almost to the point where I have, of course, we're Origin folks here, and full disclosure, they are sponsors, but they, I was running.
One.
You've never had one?
No.
We need to change that. Well, maybe we'll figure out something.
Even just for fun.
Yeah. They're amazing gis. But I have 2 white Origin gis, and one of them is one of my favorites. It's the Path gi. It's just the meaning behind it, number one. But I am getting to the point where I don't like white gis now. And it's just like, I'm not sure what's transitioned in my mind. But I don't care how clean you think you can keep white gis. I don't care how clean you think the mats are, and they're clean mats. You're still going to have dingy gis that you can't completely get clean. And so that's probably what bugs me more than anything. But there's also this mindset thing for me. I really love my black gis now. I'm starting to get maybe my my main gis are all going to be black now, but I don't know.
I'm fortunate to train at a gym that doesn't care what kind of gis we wear, what color we wear, whatever else. Like we'll look at you funny for some of them, and we'll make fun of you. But nobody showed up in the NASA orange one yet. I can't say that. Have you seen that? Santa Bowl does a NASA gi.
Yep, I've seen it.
And it comes in orange. So nobody's shown up with one of those yet. But otherwise, we're pretty loose, so I can kind of do whatever I want. So I have a lot of navy, blue, and gray ones now.
Oh, that's cool.
I do wish that, because gray's one of my favorite colors. I wish that Origin will make some gray gis. I mean, I suppose if we ordered enough, which I don't think we're willing to do yet, is
that's a lot of gis.
Order custom EvoSec gis in gray. But yeah, it'll be a while before we did something like that. But well, cool. Well, awesome. Well, so let's, Aaron normally asks this question, but Aaron says it's the most important question of the show. What is 3 of your favorite musicians and or bands?
So I have to start with a disclaimer that I have the most eclectic Pandora station ever.
Rock on.
So it will have everything from like modern classical to hip hop and everything in between. So I'm that person. I'm a musician too.
Yeah, I don't know, which is awesome. And by the way, the 3 is the minimum. If you want to talk about music, go right ahead.
Well, My favorite band of all time is Live.
Oh, cool.
I've been a Live fan since the 90s. I have seen them in concert since before and after the hiatus. I actually saw them with Counting Crows before and after.
Oh man, that'd be a great concert.
Oh, what a great show. That's an amazing show. They go together really, really well. So there's Live. And I just saw Tool twice in 3 weeks earlier this year.
Yeah.
They're actually my partner's favorite band, but you go see 2 live shows from them inside of 3 weeks and tell me that you're not going to be Maynard's new greatest fan.
And he's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu.
How could you not love him?
Awesome.
But, Shinedown's been a favorite. Passenger has been a favorite lately for a completely different kind of music.
Very
like his Passenger.
Well, I need to check them out because that's the first I've heard of. And I'm one of those old guys that needs new music.
They're not metal or hard at all. They're more like Mumford & Sons.
Okay.
So I said eclectic, right?
Yeah, that's great.
My favorite musical is Rent.
Okay.
Because, I was an orchestra kid, so of course I have a favorite Broadway musical.
Awesome.
Man, tell you, I listen to everything.
That's great.
If I'm rolling at the gym, it's great if Eminem is on. It's great if the 90s mix is on. And we have Grateful Dead and Fish fans at the gym. So rolling to Fish is different.
Well,
and hey,
go ahead, Aaron.
So the Grateful Dead, now you may have an opinion on this, but I'm going to throw it out there. So John Mayer is by far one of my favorite musicians, songwriters, and a great guitar player. But have you seen the fact that he's playing with Dead and Company? That's kind of a band that they have going now. So doing Dead shows, and John Mayer plays with them. You got to forgive me, I can't remember all the guys' names, but yeah, they've become a pretty big hit, kind of carrying the torch after Jerry's been gone for so long. But pretty cool.
Well, and Annette, what I'd like to say regarding music, and one of the reasons that Aaron and I like to ask that question is because in this walk that we're on, this self-protection, self-defense path, you can learn a lot about people, about their music. And not only that, it's like when we hear people that have an eclectic background, in many cases, it's because they're critical thinkers. And that's one of the reasons why we like to talk about music, just so you know, so that
it's music.
You brought it, and every our audience members may get tired of this one too, but you can probably see behind me there my drum kit and Aaron's guitars. But you may or may not know, but Aaron and I play the bumper music on our show, and Aaron owes me some music.
I do. I said I was going to send some tracks last week, and I didn't. But that'll happen soon. And speaking of Tool, it made me think about now. I don't know if you heard the episode that we did with Tim Alexander from Primus.
I saw that you did it. I haven't listened to it, but that was so cool.
You should check that show out. I'm just going to say,
I was on the same podcast. Yeah, I'm just saying.
And you want to, and the cool thing, so he's Eric's favorite drummer for 30 years. He's one of my favorite drummers for 30 years. And we were thinking we were going to have to tread lightly on the gun stuff. We get on, and he's, before we can start talking, he's excited. I'm so excited to talk to you guys, man. I'm wanting to get back into carrying and training. Okay, wait a second.
All right.
And so it just, and there's a little friendship growing out of it.
That's awesome.
It's a lot of fun. I think we're talking to him about doing some training sometime soon. Hopefully, maybe I shouldn't talk about that too much, but
it won't hurt to be on. Even if it doesn't come to fruition, We're in the works, working out some times, and if it works out, it's going to be awesome. But we're thinking about going out to where he's at and providing him and his friends some training. So we'll see if it happens.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Then
One of
one
us.
last question. So, do you still play violin? What did you say it was violin
It
or?
was violin. I keep toying with going back. I have gone so far as I bought myself a new violin a couple
You
years
should.
ago. I now have one of the Suzuki Electrics. It's super
Oh,
cool
cool.
looking.
Oh,
And
cool.
I bought myself a new bow, and it's hanging on the wall literally right in front of me right now. So we're edging. We're edging to the
Pick it
return.
up, play it. Let's go back to the dry fire thing. If you can get 5 minutes a day, come on,
Yeah,
get,
I
get
need to
that.
do that. I need to do that. I even have I have the audio interface right here sitting on my desk.
Awesome. Yeah, you need to do that.
I do.
But like I said, we can't make you do it, but we're gonna suggest
But
that you do it.
but I'm gonna get a PM in about 4 days asking if I've practiced.
Yeah, Eric, I'm gonna set an alarm here. All right.
Well, Annette, I tell you, I know that, or excuse me, I knew that this would be a delight having you on. And we have a handful of people that we've either invited on multiple times or plan to invite on multiple times. And we would love to have you back. You've been a super delight. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Like I said, I was super honored to be on. I've had a lot of fun. I'd be happy to come back if you want me back, and happy to
Absolutely.
continue the conversation.
It is
Yeah,
not if, it's when. So yes,
exactly.
awesome. Yeah, I had a blast talking to you, Annette. Lots of fun. You when we start these interviews, most of them are just great and fun, but then there are some that just kind of get up a level, and there's this just really open, fun conversation, and this has been one of those, and so it's a lot of fun.
My
Well,
pleasure.
and I'll add to it, we also, the next step is also we need to make sure we get to train together at some point. I'm sure it'll happen in our short or our small circle for sure.
I'm sure it will happen.
Are
We'll
are
make it
you going to
happen.
TACCon?
I will be at TechCon.
We'll see you there.
I told Cecil, I told Guy actually that we need to have an open mat at TechCon on Sunday afternoon.
Let's do it.
I'll
We'll all
join in
bring
on
geese.
it.
You
I'll
heard it
do
here.
Is it going to be gi or no gi?
I mean, no gi is easier for everyone traveling.
Yep. I'm
I
good
don't
with
like
no
no
gi.
gi, but it is easier for travel.
Yeah.
I'll just bring some spats and a rash guard. Is that okay?
Yeah.
On that note.
Well, you guys have a good evening. A lot of fun. We'll talk soon on the show and at TACCon. Have a good
Sounds
one.
great. Have a
All
good
right.
one. Thank you.
Take care, Annette.
Bye bye.